Hello and welcome to PMCLounge.com. Now we are on to chapter 2 of this important series of 6 videos, Project Management for Non-Project Managers. First link in the description is the entire playlist of all 6 chapters. So if you haven't seen chapter 1, go ahead, check that out first and then come here, check out chapter 2. So let's get started. Chapter 2 is all about managing time, and this is a very important aspect. As a project manager, this is something that you must master. So let's see how you can manage time. What are some of the steps that you need to follow? Let me start off by stating the obvious. Time is the most precious commodity. It is hands down the most important and most precious commodity in this world. It is definitely something that everyone would love to have more of. And this reminds me of a quote. It said, rich people have money, wealthy people have time. So, although this training is about project management, so let's not digress too much. Let's stick to project management. And I'd like to take you back to an example that we used in chapter 1, which was juggling. So the project manager juggles between different tasks all the time. So that's why it is quite evident that the project manager is going to be short of time most of the time. So how can this be changed? But first of all, why should this be changed? This needs to change because managing time is one of the most important interpersonal skills that you as a project manager need to possess. So take this down. This is definitely one of the most important interpersonal skills that you need to master. And that is why managing time is something that we all need to learn when we are learning project management. Let's move on and look at some of the steps of how this can be done. Okay, in step 1, let's try to understand the nature of the time. The nature of the time is such that it travels only in one direction. Time can only be spent. You cannot bring back even 1 minute or even 1 second of your time that is already spent. Time travels only in one direction. And I hope that makes you realize how important managing time really is. It is obvious. Time travels in one direction, right? I am only stating the obvious. So you cannot save or store time for later use, right? You cannot save 10 minutes of your time so that you can use it later. Time travels only in one direction. But you can definitely buy time. How do you buy time? You can do so by reinvesting your time in other activities. Two important questions that you need to ask yourself here are you giving away your time for free? How do you give away your time for free? Let's say, are you attending too many meetings? Are you taking longer lunch breaks? Are you involved in water cooler discussions? These all are examples of giving away your time for free. Second question that you should ask yourself is your time being stolen? Can time be stolen? Of course, it can be stolen. If people arrive late in your meetings, they are stealing your time. If the printer is not working even after multiple attempts, yes, the printer is actually stealing your time. So time you can either give it away for free and it can also be stolen. Another thing to learn here and to keep in mind is, can you use your scrap time productively? Now, what is scrap time? Let's say you are traveling somewhere. You are on the plane. Can you work on the plane? If you can, nothing like it, right? So it's amazing how these oddments actually accumulate and what you can achieve if you make proper use of your scrap time. I'll give you some more examples. If you go for a run in the morning, can you listen to an audiobook while running instead of any songs that you might be used to, right? You can listen to audiobooks, you can listen to podcasts. I know of people that are on the treadmill in the gym and they are watching YouTube videos because they don't have time to consume YouTube videos. So they make use of their time on the treadmill and consume their favorite YouTube content. So these are some of the examples how you can actually make use of your scrap time productively. Step two is, where did your time go? Right? You might be wondering, where did your time go? So what you can do is you can start documenting all your time, and you need to do so at least for a week. So how do you do so? Let me give you an example. You can create an Excel spreadsheet, and you can use each cell of that spreadsheet as 15 minutes. So how does this work? Each row, it is going to represent an activity, for instance, meeting, lunch, tea break, etc. So each row is representing an activity. Each cell is representing 15 minutes. So an example is, let's say if you took a meeting for an hour. So what you're going to do is you're going to highlight 4 cells in the meeting row. Remember, each row is an activity. So if the coffee break took, let's say, 30 minutes, then you're going to highlight 2 cells in the coffee break row, and so on. Once you do this at least for a week, you should get ready to be surprised. You'll be surprised on where your time is all going. A tip here, once you have identified where your time goes, you can ask yourself 4 more essential questions. These questions are: question one, what should I stop doing? You're looking at your Excel file, you're looking at where all you have spent your time. Ask yourself, what should you stop doing? Ask yourself, what should I be more aware of? Were you aware of the fact that you were spending 30 minutes on coffee breaks and you were taking 3 such coffee breaks in a day? Right? So that is something you should be aware of. Question number 3 to yourself, what am I spending too much time on? Of course, if you look at your Excel file, you will be able to make out where you're spending your time on. What should I spend more time on? So let's say uh, something that is productive, something that you need to get done. How much time did you spend on it? If you spend too little on it, maybe you should spend more time on it. So these are the 4 questions that you should ask yourself once you take a look at this Excel spreadsheet. I'd like to repeat the 4 questions. What should I stop doing? What should I be more aware of? What am I spending too much time on? And what should I spend more time on? Let's move on to step 3. But before that, let me quickly remind you, youtube.com/PMC Lounge, that's our channel. If you add a slash and playlists to it, you will reach the playlist section of our channel. That is where you will find PMP project management related topics, all cleanly organized in playlists. Everything's free. Check it out. Step 3, this is where you take charge of your time. This is where you are going to be in control, in the driver's seat of where your time goes. Now, you might be surprised to know how many people simply react and lose their time. So, how do they react? What do they react to? They react to unexpected things, they react to urgent tasks that people need to get done from you, they react to people interrupting them basically. So when you are reacting, you do not have control on your time. You're basically reacting and you're losing your time. So can you be more proactive? That's the question. Can you be more proactive? Can you decide beforehand what needs to be done and when? Right? If that's something that you can decide, you are then not going to react. You're going to be proactive. Can you decide how much time you are going to allocate to each task that you need to get done beforehand itself? And can you be proactive and decide when you're going to deal with other people or unexpected things that show up? Let me give you an example here. So if you wake up in the morning and the first thing that you do is check your emails, you are definitely not being proactive. What you're being here is reactive. You're basically responding to emails, you're basically getting things done based on the requirements that you have received in your email, based on the requests that you have received in your emails. So you're not being proactive, you're being reactive. You're just reacting to what's there in your inbox. If you want to be proactive, what you can do is the night before, you make a list of everything that needs to be done the next day, and then you decide what's the first thing you're going to do in the morning. That's the time when you are basically full of energy, right? So instead of wasting that energy reacting to people, right, responding to emails, instead of that, can you be proactive and do the most complex job first thing in the morning? This is also known as the concept of eat that frog. Can you eat the frog? Can you do the most difficult job that you need to get done during a day? Can you do that first thing in the morning? So when you take such initiatives, right, now you know what not to do, and that's how you take charge of your time. So now you know you do not need to respond to emails the first thing in the morning when you're full of energy. Rather, you need to get the most difficult job, the most complex job that you need to get done that day. You do that first thing in the morning rather than checking emails and reacting to other people's requests. Step four is prioritize. Now you have a lot of stuff that you need to get done as part of your project. Or let's say today you need to get a lot of stuff done. Or let's say in this week you plan to get a lot of stuff done. How do you prioritize all this work? And that's where Eisenhower matrix comes in handy. The Eisenhower matrix, although it may look a bit scary at first, so this is how it looks like, but let me try to explain it to you. So you have two axes. The first axis is urgent. Anything that's highly urgent shows up at the top. Anything that's low on an urgent scale shows up at the bottom. The second axis is important. You again have high on the important scale and low on the important scale. So urgent and important. And in order to prioritize how you use your time, you need to know how to distinguish between what is important and what is urgent. So Eisenhower has actually given definitions of what important and urgent really is. So important is something which is highly strategic, and in the long term, whatever that's important is going to make a big difference on whether or not your project is successful. So that's something which is important. What's urgent? Urgent is basically something that you need to tackle immediately. So this does not automatically relate to a critical issue in your project. For example, let's say if your car is causing an obstruction outside the office, is this something that is urgent? Of course. But is this something important, more important than the work that you have in hand? Of course not. So this is how you can differentiate between urgent and important. Now, the best way to prioritize tasks is to split everything that you need to get done into four categories. So you have four categories in the diagram. That's how you split it. First is low urgency and low importance. What do you do with tasks that are low urgency and low importance? You can put them in the to-do list. Something that's low urgency but high importance, what do you do with them? Again, you can put them in your to-do list or something, let's say in your diary, and you need to get it done soon. So if you're someone who puts things in to-do list and then not look back at the to-do list, then you should not put this in the to-do list. You should put it in your diary, which is in your hand, and this is something that you need to get done soon. So this is the category which is likely to achieve the most long-term gains because it is highly important, and remember the definition of important that we discussed. Third is high urgency and low importance. You can delegate this. This is something that your team members can get done for you because although it is urgent, but it is not as important as to demand your time. Next is high urgency and high importance. What do you do with this? These are the tasks that you do yourself, and these are the tasks that you do right now. Highly urgent and highly important. So the general rule is to start with your most important tasks and tackle them one by one. You need to make sure that you finish the task at hand before starting the next one. Now, don't try to get the easy things out of the way first, or you might find yourself looking back at and wondering, where did the day went without even starting the most important job. So that's why don't just look for the easy things that you need to get done during the day. Now let's answer this question. What if you never manage to get the routine stuff done itself? You have certain routine stuff that you need to get done every day in the office. What if you don't manage to get that done itself, right? So the secret is to allocate yourself a block of time, let's say once a week, for all your low urgency, high important tasks, which are your routine tasks. So you can actually, allocate a block of time for such tasks. But at the same time, you should not forget Pareto. And what is that? When you're prioritizing tasks, remember the Pareto principle. Pareto said 20% of quality time produces 80% of results. So there's a flip side to this as well. 80% of non-quality time only contributes to 20% of the results. So the big lesson to draw from this is that you need to make as much of your time as possible quality time. You need to make as much of your time as quality time, right? Because that quality time is the one which is most productive. It's just as important to identify the tasks that will yield the most significant results. Don't be one of those people who spend 80% of their time by just keeping busy but never getting the important things done. Step 5, use a resource. Now, while project planning is extremely important, planning your personal time is also equally, if not more important. So you need to plan both your personal time as well as your professional time. Now, this is why you should make use of a resource. A resource can be anything. It can be a to-do list, a diary, an organizer, or even an app, right? Everyone owns a smartphone these days, and you can definitely make use of the apps that are available out there. So all tasks that you need to accomplish should be listed in the priority that we discussed in the previous slide in the Eisenhower matrix, and you can also make calendar entries if required. This is going to help you remember the tasks that you need to get done, right? So personally, I like to use Microsoft's to-do list. I like to also block my time in the calendar so that I don't forget the tasks that I need to get done, right? Here you should also remember Parkinson's law. Parkinson's law said work expands to fill the time available for its completion. Work expands to fill the time available for its completion. In other words, if you allocate a day to clean your house, it will normally take at least a day, if not slightly longer. Yet, if you only had an hour before guests were due to come to your house, the chances are that you would do most of your house cleaning in 1 hour itself. So the lesson here is while the time allocated to achieve a particular goal must be reasonable, don't make it too long. It will make all the time. It is going to take all the time that you're going to give it. That's Parkinson's law for you. Moving on, step 6 is to eliminate distractions, and you have distractions everywhere. So in step 2, where you created the Excel spreadsheet, remember all rows represented activities, and cells represented 15 minutes of your time. So you identified, when you created that Excel file, you identified what was wasting your time. Now you need to eliminate those distractions. So some helpful suggestions here: ask people to call you back when you are in the middle of something. So let's say you're doing something really important and somebody calls up. What happens? If you take that call, you've lost the momentum, you've lost your focus, you're now busy on the call. So instead of taking that call, you need to give them a specific time. Call me at 4 p.m. And if they are late, if they call you at 4:10, rebook them for 6 p.m. So that's a suggestion. Another suggestion is answer phones or mails in batches twice or thrice a day instead of being available all day. So what happens is, let's say you're doing something and you receive an email. The email pops up, you see the notification, you go into the email and you start responding to that email. You have just lost focus of what you were doing. So instead of doing this, being available all day, you should have a batch time to answer all the emails twice or thrice a day. 12 p.m., 1:30 p.m., and 4 p.m. is where I'm going to check my emails and respond to them. I am not going to be available all day. That's how you batch reply to emails. That's how you batch reply to phone calls that you might have received during the day. Finally, you can encourage others to think through instead of providing solutions. So as a project manager, this happens all the time. If you're working on a large project, you have, let's say, 100 people in your project team, everyone's going to come in and ask questions. So instead of you providing solutions to their questions, you should ask for their opinion on the problem, right? And then you can guide them wherever required. So you don't have to do the solutioning for them. You can ask for their opinion and you can guide them wherever required. That way, they are also going to run the horses of their brain and making sure that they come up with solutions rather than always coming to you with boatload of questions. Finally, differing interruptions to a later time might auto resolve them. This is also a good tip. So if something is not that urgent, you can defer it, right? If you don't have to respond to every email, let's say you give it a day. Somebody has sent you an email, you give it a day. The next day, you might see in your inbox that the question in that email has been resolved by some other team member. So you can defer some of the interruptions to a later time as well. Sometimes these interruptions are going to auto resolve themselves. So that is going to save you some time. All right, so here are some quick wins for chapter 2, managing time. You can guard your time from being wasted and stolen. We saw how your time can be wasted, how you give away your time for free. Don't do that. How people and processes can steal your time. Guard your time from being wasted and stolen. Chalk out where your time goes on a daily basis and identify the top time wasters. We talked about how you can create an Excel file, right? That way, if you are going to chalk out where your time is going on a daily basis, you'll be able to identify what your top time wasters are. You need to be proactive instead of being reactive. When you answer your emails the first thing in the morning, you are being reactive rather than being proactive. Control events rather than letting them control you. Like I said, when you answer emails the first thing in the morning, you are letting events control you rather than you controlling them. Distinguish between urgent and important. Make use of the Eisenhower metrics that we talk about. You can prioritize tasks. You can use a resource to plan your time, apps, to-do list, right? You can make use of them. Eliminate distractions in a disciplined manner. We talked about how you can follow the batch approach, respond to emails in batches rather than being available all day. You can delegate your tasks, right? As a project manager, you'll have your project team that you can delegate your tasks to. And learn to say no. Very, very important. Don't say yes to everything because everything is going to cost your time. So learn to say no. So that's how you manage your time. Now you need to build a team. That's the next step. So our next chapter, that is chapter 3, is all about building a team. You can click the link on your screen right now or the first link in the description below, and I will see you there.